Welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure to have you all join this webinar. Very special thanks to Maersk, who has been a key partner for the ITC SheTrades initiative. My name is Anna Mori. I'm the Program Officer and Partnerships Coordinator of ITC SheTrades. For those who don't know SheTrades, we are an initiative of the International Trade Center, and we aim to connect 3 million women to markets by 2021. We count a lot on the support and technical expertise of partners such as Maersk to reach this goal. And today we're very happy to kickstart our series of webinars with the world's largest container shipping company. This is the first webinar of the series in 2019. And together, ITC SheTrades and Maersk are very committed to offer solutions to build the logistical competitiveness of women entrepreneurs. So this webinar today speaks about the role of forwarders in adding value to your supply chain, ladies. Our speaker is Mr. Florian Kuentzel, Trade Manager of Maersk. He has over 17 years of international experience in shipping and supply chain management. We are delighted to have Florian to share his great insights with all of us. So additionally, and finally, this webinar will be moderated by Leticia Johnson, also working for the SheTrades team. And the webinar will take approximately 45 minutes of presentation with remaining 15 minutes for Q&A. And this Q&A, you participants, you are able to drop your questions in our chat box. We will be curating the questions and then giving back to Florian to answer. So without taking any longer, I will then pass on the mic to our distinguished speaker, Florian. The floor is yours, Florian. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the nice and kind introduction. Let me check on the slides. I cannot switch the slides, actually.
Hi, Florian. This is Leticia Johnson. Just
Hi.
give me a moment. I have given you the presentation, this small little icon that you can see in Florian on your name.
Yeah.
You can then on the main screen, you could try to change the slide. Let me know if you can do that.
No.
No? Okay, so on your left-hand side, you have a little icon.
Ah, okay, here we go.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
So, hello, everybody, and thanks for the kind introduction so far. I'm very excited about this webinar today, where we will look into how you can extract value in your supply chain by using a freight forwarder. My name is Florian Kuentzel, as you have heard. I'm working for AP Moller Maersk, who is an integrated container logistics company working to connect and simplify its customer supply chains. As mentioned by Anna, I'm working for Maersk now for about 17 years, held different positions in Germany, South Korea, and Denmark, with special focus on and around forwarders. And today we want to explore how we can extract value for you. So in this webinar today, we have 4 main things you need to know about forwarders. Depending on the nature of your business, the use of a forwarder might be essential or very, very important for you too, especially when you're in the phase of setting up your own business. The main questions we will address to enable you to identify the right one for you are the following. What is your need? So when and for what do you need a forwarder actually? Is it for the transport? Is it for the documentation? Is it for warehousing as well? Is it the whole supply chain, for example? What do forwarders offer? So what are freight forwarders actually, or what is a freight forwarder? And what are the different services, components that they bring to the table that you can potentially use? what is out there. There are various thousands of different forwarders out there in the world, and finding the right one for you might be a little bit tricky. So there we look into the different types, components, trying to narrow down and enabling you to make the right choice at the end of the day, what the best fit is for you. And last but not least, how to actually buy those logistics services. What is interesting for the forwarder, what you bring to the table, and what do you need to be very aware of when you negotiate certain services or buy, and how can you get the best deal out of it for yourself. This is not necessarily only focusing on money and getting the cheapest deal, but rather getting the most value out of the deal and the entire package. So first of all, we look into how does your business look and what are your actual needs? Do you, for example, produce goods yourself that you then export somewhere in the world? Or do you source? Do you import finished goods that you further enhance and then sell locally, or that you export again? Or you source parts or finished goods? If you source or import, for that matter, for example, it's important to consider the right Incoterm you are using. Incoterms are the buying terms which determine when the cost as well as their responsibility for the cargo is passed over from the shipper to the receiver. And you cannot really say that there's one Incoterm that is better than the other. It's really finding the right one, what makes most sense for you, and at which point in time of the transport you want to take over the control and responsibility of your goods. Do you want to take it as early as possible, right when the goods leave the factory, or do you feel more comfortable in taking this over, for example, when the container arrives in your country? And then what is the volume and the value of the cargo that needs to be transported? Here on the right-hand side, we have a little graph overview. On the bottom, you see volume from low to high, and then upwards, the value from low to high. And the transportation mode goes from the top left corner down to the right, from air over road and rail, ocean to pipeline. If we use an example here, if you have iPhones, for example, then this would fit air freight probably the best, because the volume is relatively low and iPhone is relatively small, while the value is quite high. So therefore, it makes sense to transport it as fast as possible, that you can bring it to the market fast. If you have, for example, shoes, then the value per shoe is relatively low, the volume is relatively high, and there ocean, for example, might be a better transportation mode for those goods. Then how often do you order? Do you order once per week, multiple times per week, once per month, a couple of times per year? Is it regular? Is it irregular? All these things can make a difference when you want to buy services for your supply chain. Are you operating domestically or internationally? So are you importing from abroad or exporting to abroad, or are you just transporting your goods locally? The reason why this is important is when it comes to documentation and specifically customs clearance. Some countries are relatively straightforward, other countries are very complex from a procedure perspective, as well as from the documents required, information that needs to be required. So especially here, it can be very, very handy to have a specialist on your side who helps you in dealing with this. Then how relevant is the logistics cost in your COGS, which is cost of goods sold? So for example, if you have a t-shirt, then normally the logistics cost per t-shirt is relatively low. If you have stones, then normally the transportation cost is quite high, because the stone itself doesn't have that much value. And then at the end, which is probably the most important thing, and we slightly touched upon that earlier, how much effort and time are you willing to spend on your logistics? Are you setting up your business and you say, for me at the beginning, it's absolutely critical that I get the marketing right, that I sell my goods, that I have control at the end? Or is your business already a little bit more mature and you say, yeah, I'm interested in logistics. There might be some cost savings I potentially can tap into, or other reasons, and therefore you want to take earlier control. There's no right or wrong in this, but you need to be very aware on at which point in time you would like to take over the control. And therefore also which services you do yourself and then what you outsource or procure from a third party. And what are freight forwarders and what do they actually offer? A freight forwarder, also called forwarder, is a company that arranges your import and exporting of goods. Normally, the main services that forwarders are provided are ocean transport, air transport, inland transportation, which can be, for example, trucking, rail, or via a small barge ship locally, domestically. And then, of course, value-added services, which would be, for example, the documentation that was earlier mentioned. Other services that can be interesting to you could, for example, tracking of inland transportation, that you know where your goods are. You might know this from the normal parcel service. You order something online and you can track when it is and when you can expect it. Especially when you wait for goods and you have a short safety stock, this can be very interesting that you exactly know and can better plan when your goods will arrive. Preparation of shipping and exporting documents, as mentioned. Warehousing, if you don't have a warehouse yourself or you need more storage space for your goods because your business is really taking off, then you can also buy that from a forwarder or have that managed and arranged by a forwarder. Booking of cargo space, which then would ensure that the container with your cargo is going on the ship or on the airplane. Negotiate freight rates on your behalf with container carriers or air freight carriers if this is nothing you want to do yourself. Freight consolidation, which is if you have goods that don't fill a full container by themselves, so you cannot or it wouldn't make sense to buy a full container load for your business because you would only fill it 1/3 or a quarter, something like that. Then a forwarder can also support there, bundle your cargo with other shippers, and then send it over. Cargo insurances, and also in relation to that, filing insurance claims. If something doesn't go according to schedule and something happens, it might be good to have somebody on your side who knows how to deal with this, who knows how to handle it, and also has the sufficient time to do it. Because especially when you set up your business or your business is not huge and you don't have various employees looking at this, for example, this can be quite draining. Then coming to the interesting part in terms of what is out there, what is the right fit for you and your specific business. You see a little overview here from the left to the right, which shows different types of forwarders. Starting from the left side, there are global freight forwarders which operate globally. They have more or less offices or representatives in every country around the world. So it doesn't really matter whether you ship from somewhere in Asia to somewhere in Europe or to America, Africa, Australia. You can use the same contact person or party at least to handle your business. Then you have local champions, which are normally centralizing on specific markets or geographic scopes. So this could be, for example, everything in and out of the UK or focusing on a specific trade. So Asia to Europe or Asia to North America only. And then interesting online solutions are offered by digital forwarders or innovators. This you can picture like you would book a flight today. You go online, you book it online, you get your ticket online, everything basically works online. This is what these forwarders offer for you. Big BCO specialists, BCOs is what we call beneficial cargo owners. So the party that owns and controls the cargo. In our case, this would be you, for example, and these forwarders are handling very, very big customers, like very big textile chains, for example. Then specialized forwarders, these can come handy when you have smaller loads, which is called LCL, less container load. They consolidate the cargo of multiple shippers, put it in one container, ship it from A to B. So by that, you can use shipping service, and you don't have to bring enough cargo to fill a full container yourself. This can be very interesting as well. For example, if you want to split your loads over a longer period of time in smaller batches. Then SME forwarders, small and medium-sized forwarders, those are operating locally. They are very focused on spot or short-term, which normally means it's the rate of the day. It's quite transactional. This is you have a shipment next week or in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You need a price. They give you a price, and it really depends on the season. And obviously the supply and demand. Are the ships full at that point in time? Are they empty? This always has an impact on the price. And these would be the guys for the day-to-day stuff. So the best fit for you really depends on the size of your business and the maturity of your business. There's no right or wrong. It depends. Do you want one contact person for all your business, or one company to handle everything? Are you okay with one forwarder handling the documentation, another one handling the transport, for example? Do you like to talk to somebody on the phone or via email, or is it okay for you if you just order something online, handle everything online? So it really depends on what you feel most comfortable with, and what you feel makes sense for you. What's always important to consider when you look at your piece of business, how big is it going to be? Do you expect to grow a lot, or marginally, or something like that? Because some forwarders can very easily support you when your business grows, not only size-wise, but also from a geographical scope. If you pick a forwarder that is very specified in specific markets, and then you decide to go into a different market, and then you need to approach another forwarder, could be okay, could be good, could be the right thing, could be not ideal for you because you don't want to spend that much time talking to two different forwarders. You would prefer one. So all these things you need to take into consideration when picking the right one for you. And in general, the main categories that we kind of split and divide forwarders in are global, regional, local, and then specialized. So these four. Then what do you need to know and consider to get the best deal for yourself? First of all, on the left-hand side, we look a little bit what is interesting for the forwarder. So what is the forwarder looking for? What can you bring to the table to make you and your business attractive for the forwarder? Predictability is always very important because they also like to plan, prefer to plan. And if you say, for example, I have a container every week, then this is something they can plan with. If you say, I have a container every 6 months, then this is very unpredictable. So, and that of course then also reflects the price at the end of the day. Stability. Do you have a flat seasonality, or do you have a high seasonality? Do you ship a lot in 1 month and almost nothing in another month? high volumes, of course, the more volumes you bring to the table, the more interesting your business is for the forwarder, obviously, and the better you can negotiate. Then selling a package. Normally, like you go to McDonald's, you order a Big Mac. They ask you want fries with it. This normally is similar when it comes to ocean freight or transportation, logistics, and forwarding as well. You want to buy the ocean freight. Do you also need customs clearance? Do you need documentation? Normally makes a lot of sense to have a package here. So if you want to offer buy multiple services, probably makes sense to buy them from the same provider. Low maintenance, of course, I think this is self-explanatory. This is attractive. High detention and demurrage. Detention and demurrage is basically the cost that occurs for using a container and when the container stands in the container yard. So storage, basically. If you know how long you need the container, then it's good and you can plan with that. If you don't and the container stands a lot longer in the terminal or somewhere outside, for example, outside your warehouse and you cannot unload it, then a lot of costs will occur. So this you should better clarify upfront and discuss with the forwarder what exactly is needed here. Is it 5 days, 20 days, or 3 days, or something like that? So clarity here is very important. Then what can you do to obtain a better price or put yourself in a better position? As everywhere else, benchmarking is absolutely critical. So always compare, always look at what service is it, and what do I get for the amount charged or offered. I'm not saying the cheaper the better. This could be a fatal mistake. It's very important that when you benchmark and compare, that you compare the exact services that are included against the price. So don't pay more for less services or think you get a good deal because it's $25 lower, but you only get half the services that you actually need. So take a close look and benchmark. Assess when peak and slack seasons are. So when are the ships normally full? When are the ships normally empty? If you want to ship in the peak season, obviously it's more expensive and it's more difficult to get on board. If you can steer your cargo around the slack season, then it might be very interesting for the forwarder as well as for the carrier or other providers, because that's normally when they need the cargo. This could put you in a good position. So try to order in the slack and avoid the peaks. Try to get an overview on what's going on in the market. Depending on where you are geographically, from where to where you ship, there are different freight indices like the SCFI, Shanghai Container Freight Index. They, every day of the week, give out a rate, which is an average rate of various different service providers that has been issued the week before. This gives you a very good indication, are the rates going up, are the rates going down? Is today's rate exactly as shown by the index? Probably not, because it depends on so many different components, but it gives you a very good indication on how the market moves, how the market developments, as well as when would be a good time to ship and potentially when would not such a good time to ship, if you have the freedom of choice in that respect, of course. Then if you buy more than one services, leverage that. So go to a provider, you buy ocean freight, for example, ask for customs clearance as well. So what if I buy this as well? What can you offer if I add this and that and that? So their package deal can be mutual beneficial for the forwarder as well as for you. Again, consider detention and demurrage. Try to make an assessment on how long you actually need the container, that you don't discover later in the process a nasty invoice that could have been avoided in the first place. Also, normally, if the container carriers get their equipment back faster, they are quite happy. So you can also use fast turn times to use it to have a little upside here on for you. And then again, I can't emphasize it a lot. Always benchmark, compare like for like. Never compare apples with oranges. That could be very yeah, disappointing at the end. So again, a little recap on the four main things that we earlier mentioned. I hope you have a little bit of an insight now, or a better overview on what is it you need to look into, or what could be interesting for you. We covered what is your need, what do the forwarders offer, what is out there, and when you want to buy something, how do you approach it? What can you use as an upside? What can you bring to the table that is interesting for the other party? Okay, now we planned a little quiz, but it seems like unfortunately the answers are revealed right away. That's a bit of a pity. But just for yourself, if you recap what we just discussed, what are the main forwarder categories to think about? It's global, regional, local, and specialized. And if you start looking for a forwarder, try to approach it from this angle first. What makes sense for you, and then see which forwarders would fit the respective category to boil it further down. And then what are the main services forwarders provide? It's ocean, air, inland, and value-added services. So transportation as well as other services that are needed in order to fulfill that service and complement it. Should you always use a forwarder? That clearly depends. If you're not a specialist for certain things like customs clearance, for example, it probably makes sense to get a specialist. If you look into ocean freight and transportation, different modes that you theoretically can procure yourself, but you don't have to. How much do you want to get involved? That really depends on you and your preferences. How to get the best deal from a forwarder? It's pretty simple. Know your requirements and always benchmark. If you know what you want to buy, it's a lot easier to buy something instead of going to somebody and say, yeah, I have this problem. What do I need for it? So the more you know about your business and your needs, the better it is for you. And then last but not least, again, benchmark, always benchmark and compare. We covered in the presentation a lot of things. I don't know what is new to some of you or newer to others than not. So I added a couple of links here. For example, a little bit more into detail. What does a freight forwarder do, and do you need one? So there's a link. You click on it, and you can read the content. Might provide you with some further clarity, or maybe even spark some further questions. So when you approach a forwarder, you have questions that they need to answer to. And then if you're interested in buying services, compare online, see what services do they offer. Might that be a match for you or not? Incoterms, we also earlier touched. If you check out this link, then you can find a very long list of multiple different Incoterms. So you can just browse through and see what seems most appealing to you and makes most sense. And then touching again on the container freight index, you can click on the link here, take a look at it, how it looks, what it means, on which trades they offer what. And if you can't find the trade you are interested in, then just punch it into Google, search a bit around. Very often there are other indices that provide an overview on the market developments. And then how can Maersk actually help you with your logistics? As we mentioned earlier, and also as highlighted in the kind introduction, Maersk offers various services in global container logistics around the globe. We offer ocean transport globally. There we have brands like Maersk or Safmarine. Then we have regional brands, or a regional brand, Sealand. They are more focused on intra-Asia, intra-Americas, or intra-Europe, for example, so what we call short sea. We also have a forwarder that is called Damco, offering global freight services and solutions. Damco would clarify and what we earlier discussed as a global forwarder. And recently we established Twill, which is a digital forwarding company, so that then covers also the component if you are more keen or interested in handling everything online. Then in addition to that, we provide logistics and services, which then goes more into the deeper supply chain solutions, including value-added services, documentation, warehousing. So this goes a little bit beyond the normal documents and customs house brokerage, but these services are all also included and available here. So I suggest you click on the different links, especially on the one on the very below, where it goes. Oh, okay. I just saw that the links doesn't seem to be working. We make sure that you get working links, so no problems there. So once you have those, definitely click on them, check them out. I especially highlight for you the bottom one, the solutions that could be quite interesting for you as well. And on that note, then we open the floor for questions. Let me try to hand over.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Florian, for your presentation. I am calling for questions. If you have any questions, please put it on the chat box, and Florian will then answer any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, please do write it on the chat box, and Florian will then answer them. We have the first question. What kind of package do you think a small... Hold on, the questions are coming in. Give me a second. Can we get the whole presentation? Okay, so what kind of package do you think a small startup should pay for?
That's a very tricky question, because it really depends what kind of business you have. If you, for example, let's say you import chairs from China to Europe. At the end of the day, you need to get your chairs from Asia to Europe. So you need transportation. This is one and the first thing. You need customs clearance. That is the second thing. And documentation is the third thing. So based on these components, I would approach a forwarder and say, this is what I want to do. These are the services I believe I need. Is there anything else you suggest? And then they will provide you with an overview of what they can do, and then you need to assess whether that makes sense for you. I'm trying to answer the question, but it's a very broad question that makes it a little bit tricky. So it also depends, how much do you know trade? Do you have any idea or knowledge on logistics, how it works? what the different modes are. And there I would just kind of gather a lot of information, maybe ask a couple of different forwarders what they suggest, what they offer, and then compare that, and then maybe ask one who didn't offer something why they didn't suggest that, or kind of try to boil it down for yourself.
Excellent. So following the second question, then there's one that says, question, my forwarder is asking me to provide EORI for a DDP, intercoms to France.
Provide the RI for DDP?
Yes. A EORI for a DDP,
Okay.
intercoms to France.
I'm not 100% sure what the EORI is, to be honest.
Dear Adebayo, could you just elaborate on that question, please? All right, following a second one, let's go to what is the benefit of SCFI, and if I'm trading in Africa?
If you're trading in Africa, then the SCFI doesn't bring you much because that covers Asia to Europe. Offhand, I don't know whether there is another index on that website or from them they are publishing that goes, for example, from Asia to Africa. But if you are exporting or importing from Asia to Africa, I would punch it into Google and see whether whether there is an index actually that covers that. It could also be that you boil it down to West Africa or East Africa. There can be differences, but if it's not Asia to Europe, then the SCFI doesn't bring you very much. However, if you import from Asia, then of course the peaks would be quite similar because the Chinese New Year would apply for your trade as well as for any other destination, or Golden Week for that example.
All right. Next one. Does Maersk act as a specialized forwarder?
As a specialized forwarder, what was mentioned in the overview, you consolidate cargo. That service Damco can also offer, yes. So Damco is considered a global forwarder based on their geographical presence and scope, but they also offer specialized services.
Okay, next. What type of forwarder is best for an e-commerce enterprise?
That's again a very good and quite broad question. I would say it rather depends on the goods that needs to be transported. If it's an e-commerce company where you kind of online sell stuff, then the question would be, do you want the cargo to go into your warehouse and you then arrange the final distribution or something like that? Or would you completely outsource this? So a customer orders on your website your stuff and it's directly shipped from the origin to the destination. So from that perspective, it can be different. It can be a different fit. That I would address or ask to the forwarder whether they can provide that service, whatever you feel more comfortable with, whether you have want to, because if you want to have more control and have the goods yourself, then you also need a warehouse, obviously, or storage space. Otherwise, you can outsource that. So some forwarders offer the complete outsourced package, which could be very handy. But which forwarder would be the right one for you then also, of course, depends on the geographical scope.
Excellent. There's a next question. Does Maersk do consolidated consignments? It's often difficult to find a shipper that does that.
Yes, we do. That's what I earlier mentioned when we talked about specialized forwarders or cargo. So Damco is also offering that service. Yes.
Excellent. Next, how to avoid or at least reduce the demurrage costs, especially in the ports that clearing requires more time. I think it's clearance require more time.
Yeah, clearance. Yeah. Um, if you know that the clearance requires, let's say, 5 days, and you have only 6 free time days, then it really depends how fast can you unload the container and how fast can you bring the container from the port to your warehouse and back. If you know this, then you can have an open discussion with the forwarder around this and say, you offer me 6 days, but I actually need 8, for example. Can we agree on 8 days? Or what is the cost after 6 days? So there you need to have a negotiation and discussion around it, whether you can have more free days or whether you can do something on the price for the days after.
All right, the next question comes from MK, and he's asking, is there a map for Maersk's shipping routes from Africa to Europe to inform planning?
Yes, we have on our website all our shipping schedules. So this is not only from Africa to Europe, they are all global network schedules updated and published. And if you look them up there, you see the ports that are called, the days ship calls the respective ports, the transit time from one port to another. So it's all on the Maersk.com website
Okay.
under schedules.
The next question comes from Adibayo. What is the best way to ship bath salt around the world?
um,
Or cosmetics as well. There's one that's quite related.
mm, I would say it depends a bit on the quantity. Bath salt is, as I know it, relatively heavy. So if you ship, let's say, a couple of sacks of that, you easily have a lot of very heavy cargo. So offhand, I would suggest ocean as being the transport of choice here. If you talk, for example, Chanel lipsticks, then maybe air freight again comes into play. But in general, on average, for these kind of products, I would suggest ocean freight actually.
Excellent. The next question comes from Patricia. When exporting or importing, is the quality and standards of good checked at any point?
That depends. If you want that service, that is something you can buy. It's called quality control. Um, if you buy from a factory, say somewhere in China, and they stuff it in a container, they lock and seal the container, then nobody is checking the goods in between because the container is sealed, and also for customs purposes, the seal cannot be broken. And the seal number will be in the document. If you want quality checks, then that needs to be bought, obviously. That can be done. And then the seal will be broken, goods will be checked, a new seal will be used, and that will be then also reflected in the documentation. This normally happens when you have a warehousing operations where also pick and pack is required. So a lot of, let's say, textiles are coming in, quality is checked, they're packed into batches, and those batches are then on the container. What we do have though, Um, if to reefer containers, for example, we have RCMs which track the container and partly also the condition of the goods. So there it's monitored what the temperature is. Does the temperature change? Is the ventilation of the goods as required or as it should be? Is the temperature increasing or decreasing? So that can be done. Depends whether you want of the status of your cargo, or really, let's say, a quality check. Is the T-shirt in proper condition, or does it have a hole?
Perfect. The next question is from Ms. Serbi. She asks, what is the best way to ship handicraft textiles and fashion products from India? Being a woman entrepreneur and a member of the SheTrades, do we get a leverage from Maersk?
So somebody paid good attention in the presentation, I see.
Yes.
In general, I would say transportation mode there, ocean makes sense, is very well. And in terms of leverage and these kind of things, that is something we haven't discussed yet. But often, I would say with SheTrades, we can have a discussion around how we can enable the members to ship with us.
Perfect. The next question is from MK. Are there any consultants to inform business planning to help map out the requirements before working with the forwarding?
There probably are. I'm often not really aware of any specialized consultants that do that on a global or wider scope. What sometimes happens is that there are local companies that act as somewhat a broker, you can say. So they assess the services and then they kind of put it together and hook you up with a forwarder. Often, to be very honest, I don't really see a difference why you shouldn't go to a forwarder directly in the first place. Because it's like going into a shop, you potentially want to buy a coat. You don't know which color, you don't know what size, and all that stuff. You go in, you ask, you get presented by a couple of coats. If you like one, you buy it. If don't, you go to another shop and check there as well. So I would benchmark and go around, approach different parties, ask for services, what they suggest, and what they offer, and compare.
Excellent. The next question comes from Esther. She asked, would it be possible to get a digital portal where we can get a quick, accurate quote or at least an estimate for each destination instead of having to wait on forwarders to send the quotation?
Well, that you can get online on our websites. So if you, for example, want the price, you go on the website, type in what you want from which port to which port, which equipment, etc., and then you get a price, and you can even book there. So this similarly also then applies, of course, for the digital forwards like Twill, where you go on the website, you click the services you are interested in, you want to buy, you get a price. If you like the price, you buy it right there and then online.
The next question comes from Daisy. She would like to know what is the best way to transport meat from Southern Africa to China?
I would definitely say reefer containers. We have a very sizable fleet, very big fleet of reefer containers, which are able to hold the temperature for a very long time. So it's basically like putting the meat into a fridge, depending on whether it's deep frozen or chilled, and then the containers are consistently plugged into either generators while they are on the truck, or plugged into electricity in the ports, and then later as well as on the ship. And there we also track the temperature and performance of the container. So if you say your meat should be consistently at minus 12 degrees, if it falls to minus 11 or goes up to minus 11 or falls down to minus 13, there is an alarm going on, and then somebody on the ship check it, repair it, or do something to ensure that nothing happens to your cargo. So there, I would suggest shipping in reefer containers.
Excellent. We're going to take a few more questions before we end, and the next question comes from Joyce. What are the benefits of air logistics over ocean in terms of price?
Well, air freight is significantly more expensive, but it's also a lot faster. Therefore, I had the example earlier with the iPhones. If you have an iPhone you buy and you want to sell, it has high value. You want to get it into the shop as fast as possible, and you sell it for a relatively high price. Therefore, you can afford using air freight, even though it's multiple times what you would pay on ocean, but you get it in the shop very fast, you sell it very fast, and you get your money also therefore very fast. If you put it in a container on the ocean, then your iPhone might sit, for example, 30 days around on the ocean until you get it. So this is also a very heavy cash flow investment, because while it's at sea, you cannot sell the goods, you don't get your money. So there you need to consider whether the higher transportation time, higher transportation cost, and faster transportation time justifies the speed efficiency here.
Excellent. The next question comes from MK. Do you have any advice for, sorry, where is that? Do you have any advice for calculating the minimum effective scale for shipping?
That's a good question. Do you mean, for example, or I assume you want to make a distinguish whether it makes sense to book a full container or book, let's say, a less container load, so to consolidate with others. There, in my view, I would compare the price for a full container, and less container loads are normally priced in cubic meters. And then you can see how many cubic meters can you fit into a container, and how much do you need to pay for your, let's say, 10 cubic meters you have and you want to ship. Is this cheaper or more expensive than buying a full container yourself? It could also be that if you ship something extremely heavy, let's say steel coils, it doesn't fill the container from a volume perspective, but it fills them from a weight perspective. So then it still makes a lot of sense on buying a full container instead of doing something else with it. So always compare cubic meter price.
Excellent. And there's a very interesting question here from HX. Please, are there discounts for SheTrades members that ship with your company?
No. This is again what we earlier discussed.
Yes.
A discount is quite relative, so you need to compare the package you get, the service you get. So a cheaper price is not always the better choice.
Excellent. So we have come to the end of our webinar session. Florian, thank you so much for this informative webinar on trade and logistics.
Thank you very much too.
Thank you.
Has been a pleasure.
The audience, we are going to send the PowerPoint presentations, and you will be able to then click on the links and explore more on the options that Maersk has for you. And please, we will have the next webinar on the 27th of May and the topic will be on how to maintain product quality during transportation. We look forward to we look forward to having you. Please remember to register, and that will be all from my part. Florian, do you have any final words?
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. It has been very exciting. I appreciated a lot the engagement. We really received a lot of questions, very good questions. It was really fun to do this, and I hope it wasn't the last time. Thank you.
Excellent. Everyone, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.